Welcome back. This is Boot Camp for Combat by Compass Games and Ross Mortel. I'm Cliff, aka Wee Beasties, and we're in our second of 3 units covering the components of the combat game system. In this one, we're going to be looking at terrain and the maps. And I'll be honest, I've tried this a couple of different ways and haven't been really happy. So I'm just going to simplify it, try to get to the points I'm trying to get to. There are 10 maps now in volumes 1 and 2, and trying to actually unfold the maps and get to what I wanted to show you was getting to be a bit cumbersome, and the point was getting lost. So I'm hoping that this comparison and summary of terrain is a more useful approach. You can let me know. Now, the maps between volumes 1 and volume 2 have different art depictions. I like them both. I think Natter did a good job in both volumes. I think that's how you pronounce it. Rhymes with ladder? I'm not sure. He can let me know if I butchered his name. Sorry. Volume 1 had more shadows and a more cartoony type appearance, and volume 2 is more gritty and dark and more like a typical wargame map with military crest lines drawn in. And yeah, I like them both. There's a part of me that wishes I could just have everything one way, though. It's just the way I'm wired. Anyway, I'm going to compare and contrast so you can translate between the two different art styles. The first thing I want to talk about is elevation. In combat, there are different levels, elevations of terrain, and elevation will be important when we discuss line of sight soon. So we might as well get this under control now. The base elevation for the game system is level 0, which is drawn as clear hexes or sometimes more rough hexes in volume 2. This is level 0. It's the base level. Most hexes are going to be level 0. A level 1 hill is up maybe, I don't know, 20 feet or so, I suppose. It's about the height of a building or a tree. 20-25 feet. Looks like this in volume 1. Looks like this in volume 2, where the crest line has a 1 on it to tell you that, hey, this is where we have our crest line for level 1 hills. Level 2, darker brown, sort of like, advanced squad leader, combat commander. The color codes are pretty similar. There's a 2 for the crest line, level 2 hill in volume 2. There are level 3 hills in volume 1. They're even darker. I couldn't find any level 3 hills in any of the 6 new maps in volume 2. The rules indicate that they could go up to level 5, but on the maps we have levels 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now, there are a lot of terms in the rules, and it's important to understand how they fit together, especially when we talk about line of sight. And level or elevation is one of them. So level is the base elevation of a terrain hex. Attacking and defending units, you're going to look at what level they're at. You don't really care what terrain they're in for determining LOS. Size. Every single different kind of object in this game system has a vertical size. Size is independent of level. So a building has a size of 1. A tree has a size of 1. Walls have a size of 1/2. Sizes are generally either going to be negative 1/2, 0, 1/2, 1, and now with volume 2 and the Abbey, we have a size 2 structure. Height, when we talk about height in LOS, is the sum of the level and size. So a level 1 hex with a size 1 building on it would be having a height of 2. So here I'll show you in a diagram. Here's level 0. A tree with size 1 on level 0 would have height of 1, because 1 plus 0 is 1. A size 1 building at level 1 will have a height of 2. 1 plus 1 is 2. And there are depressions that have a size of negative 1/2. They would have a level of 0, size of negative 1/2, which makes them a depression after all. There is another term, rough. Rough is going to refer to difficulty of movement in terrain. Rough terrain will not allow sprinting soldiers to continue on. Sprinting soldiers that enter rough terrain are going to have to duck back. And we'll cover duck back in the future too. So there's a lot of different kinds of terrain, and now we have 2 depictions of each kind. I've created a little chart to compare, and we're just going to run through them. One more term to consider is whether you're in cover or not. Cover is an important term for determining orders for your enemy units. They're going to act differently when they're in cover or whether they're in the open or in the clear. So concealment is the concept where you're hidden from view, but concealment doesn't necessarily stop lead. Cover can give you some concealment, prevent a good LOS, prevent you being seen, but it also can stop lead. So cover can stop lead. Most of the depictions on our maps will provide cover, except for open terrain. Open terrain is always open by definition, so it's never cover. And fields, crops, are not cover. Most other things that aren't these are cover. So, some of these terrain things are going to also block LOS, and some of these block conditionally. We're going to cover LOS in detail later, so we'll be coming back to this. I know LOS is confusing. It confused me for a long time too, because every game system deals with it a little bit differently. We'll go through it and create formulas and make it easy just to plug and chug. So, no cover for open and field. Open, we already talked about what it looks like. Fields, they look like crops from above. I don't know what that is. Maybe corn. Fields have a size of 0. They're not rough. They don't give cover. Fields can sometimes be considered low terrain. Low terrain is like a short terrain. A field is only going to be a short terrain during the height of the growing season for the crop. So this is going to be June, July, August when the crops are at their height. They can block LOS a little bit, but only if the soldiers involved, one or more of them, has a sneak, hide, rally, or reload order. So it's conditional. I remember this as Sherry, S-H-E-R-R-Y, because it's sneak, S, hide, H, E, I just throw that in to make a word, R, rally, and then reload, R-E. So it's Sherry. Orchards are size 1. They're not rough, so you don't have to duck back when you're sprinting. They do give you cover, and they are blocking, as are trees. So anything tree-like is going to block LOS with a size of 1. There are some 1/2 heights. Rubble, when I have an asterisk here, it means that rubble can be placed during the playing of a scenario or by scenario rule as an icon like this, or like a icon or chit. Or sometimes in Volume 2 it actually occurs as printed hexes too. It's rough cover, but does not block LOS, and it's only half height. Marshes have a different appearance. There's more blue in the marshes in Volume 1 than Volume 2, but you can tell because they're usually nearby rivers, a little marshy area. You can tell from their context what they are. These do block LOS, and they're only half height. So they're going to be like walls in that they're half height, and they do block LOS. Buildings are very prominent. They're usually going to be level 1. Rocks, half, like walls. So we have these half heights, which are functionally here the same as level 1s. They can block LOS if they're taller than the levels of the two soldiers shooting at each other. So if both soldiers are at level 0, one half will block just as surely as one. There are others that are low, like field, that are one half. Well, a field is actually 0, so it's a special case, but I'll show you some one halves down here. Hedgerow, like a wall. Here, get to our low terrain. Our low terrains, keep them clumped up here. Long grass, looks like this, and logs, looks like that. These are half height. These are not rough, and they do provide cover, and they're considered low terrain in that if you're standing there with a fire order or an evade order, they don't block LOS. But if you have the sneak, hide, rally, or reload order, either of the soldiers, the one firing or the one defending, then LOS will be blocked. Depressions are actually below 0. They have a size of -1/2. On Volume 2's map, they're listed as a level of -1/2. That is not correct. They should be -1/2, not -1. And that's the size, not the level. These depression terrains, which will include foxholes and trenches and streams and craters, and I assume ponds in Volume 2. Doesn't really say in Volume 2, but from context, I'm going to assume that a pond is going to be a depression 2+. Who's going to play in a pond? You're too vulnerable out there. These depressions will impair line of sight sometimes. Normally when you're in a depression, you can be seen if you're standing there firing, you're evading. But if you have the sneak, hide, rally, reload orders, Sherry again, then you cannot be seen because you're ducking down into that depression and grabbing some earth. Unless the firing unit is directly adjacent to the depression hex. If they're directly adjacent, or if they're one away and they're up one level, or two away and up 2 levels, they can see down into the depression and still see them. The other possibility is on something like a stream or a pond. If you're looking across multiple contiguous depressions, like down a stream, that won't block LOS either. Volume 2 gives us some new terrain. We get a pond. There are fountains, which are 1/2 level, and they do block. And the Abbey is actually a level 2 now. We actually have a level 2 building for real. And there are interior and exterior hexes. I think I've got this labeled a little confusing. This is an interior hex. Interior hexes do not necessarily block line of sight. If you're shooting inside the Abbey, you're like shooting between columns and benches and stuff. But they will give you a hindrance of -1 for every hex that the line of sight goes through if you're inside the building shooting within the building. If you're shooting from the outside into the building, the outer hexes are going to block that. You won't be able to get to the inner hexes. So there are a lot of different kinds of terrain. And we will be going over these in LOS specifically, but I mostly wanted to just kind of run through an overview of them here and create this comparison for the two maps, because I initially found the two maps to be a little bit confusing, wrapping my head around the artwork, making sense, aligning them in my head so that I know for sure what I'm looking at. And I'm hoping that this helps you out a little bit too. In our next video, we're going to run through the decks of cards. That will be our third and final components video, and then we're finally going to get into the processes and procedures that are involved in actually playing this game. I'll see you guys then.